We're stepping into the shadows of feudal Japan, where honor cuts deeper than any sword, and where women wielded steel with the same deadly precision as their male counterparts. Drop your city and local time in the comments. It's fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe light some incense for that gentle glow, and let's walk together into a world where being born female didn't mean being born defenseless. You wake before dawn in your father's compound. Your futon still warm against the tatami mats. The year is 1185. Outside, the morning air carries the metallic scent of dew on blade grass, and the distant sound of wooden swords clacking against bamboo. Your name is irrelevant. What matters is that you're an Onna-Bugeisha, a female warrior, and today you'll learn what it truly means to balance death and duty. Your hands find the naginata beside your sleeping mat before your eyes fully open. The weapon's weight has become as familiar as your own heartbeat, a curved blade mounted on a wooden staff longer than you are tall. Think of it as a medieval Swiss army knife designed exclusively for removing limbs. The lacquered wood is smooth under your palms, worn down by countless hours of practice that have left permanent calluses along your fingers. The silk of your sleeping kimono whispers against your skin as you rise, but beneath it lies something far more practical. Your hada juban, the inner garment, is reinforced with small plates of iron sewn between layers of fabric. Even in sleep, you're armoured. Even in dreams, you're ready for war. You slide open the wooden screen that separates your quarters from the courtyard, and immediately the sounds of morning training assault your ears. Your younger brother is already practicing his kata, his movements fluid as water, deadly as poison. He doesn't acknowledge your presence, not out of disrespect, but because in this world, distraction equals death. The compound around you tells the story of your family's status. Manicured gardens where every stone has been placed with mathematical precision. Buildings constructed without a single nail, held together by joints so perfect they'll outlast empires. Your family serves the Minamoto clan, which means you serve honor above life, duty above comfort, and the sword above everything else. But here's what the history books often forget to mention. Being a female samurai isn't some romantic exception to the rule. You're not the plucky underdog defying tradition. You're part of a long, proud tradition of women who understood that when enemy armies come calling, they don't check for gender before they start the killing. Your grandmother fought in the Genpei War. Your aunt died defending a fortress while her husband was away campaigning. Violence, in your world, is an equal opportunity employer. The morning routine begins with purification. You walk to the wooden basin filled with mountain water so cold yours makes your teeth ache. The shock of it against your face washes away the last wisps of sleep and dreams. In the reflection, you see your mother's eyes staring back, situ dark, determined, carrying the weight of expectations that could crush mountains. Your breakfast waits on a low table. Rice that tastes like discipline. Pickled vegetables sharp enough to wake the dead. And tea so bitter it could double as medicine for weak constitutions. You eat in silence, listening to the compound come alive around you. Servants preparing for the day's duties. Your father's voice discussing strategy with his retainers. The sound of arrows hitting their targets from the practice range. But there's something else in the air this morning. A tension that makes the hair on your arms stand up. Your father's meetings have been more frequent lately, more secretive. The servants speak in whispers, and last night you saw riders approaching the compound under cover of darkness, their faces hidden beneath travelling cloaks. Listen to the morning birds calling from the cherry trees, their songs innocent and sweet, completely oblivious to the fact that they're serenading a world where children learn to kill before they learn to write poetry. Your training begins at sunrise, but not the kind Hollywood would have you expect. There are no dramatic sword fights with orchestral music. Instead, you start with meditation, sitting in Caesar position until your legs scream for mercy and your mind achieves the clarity of still water. Your sensei, a weathered woman whose scars map out 3 decades of combat, watches you with eyes that miss nothing. The naginata is not a sword, as she reminds you for the 1000th time. It is an extension of your will, your body, your spirit. A sword seeks to penetrate. A naginata seeks to sweep, to slice, to create distance and control space. Her own weapon moves through the air like it's made of silk instead of steel. tracing patterns that would be beautiful if they weren't designed to separate souls from bodies. You mirror her movements, feeling the burn in your shoulders as the staff rotates through its endless forms. The weight of the blade wants to pull you forward, off balance, into mistakes that would be fatal in actual combat. Your feet slide across the wooden floor in patterns older than memory, each step precisely measured, each stance tested by centuries of women who face the same enemies, the same challenges, the same choice between perfection and death. The morning sun streams through the rice paper screens, casting your shadow on the wall, a dancing silhouette of violence and grace. Sweat beads on your forehead despite the cool air, and your kimono clings to your body like a second skin. But you can't stop, won't stop, because somewhere in the distance war drums are calling, and when they reach your gates, there won't be time for second chances. Your sensei calls a halt, and you bow deeply, muscles trembling from exertion. "Better," she says, which from her might as well be a proclamation of genius. But your grip on the blade end is still too tight. You're trying to control the weapon instead of partnering with it. Remember, the naginata has its own desires, its own momentum. Your job is to guide it, not dominate it. The wisdom cuts deeper than you'd like to admit. In a world where women are expected to be controlled, to be dominated, the naginata teaches the opposite. It demands partnership, respect, the understanding that true strength comes from working with forces greater than yourself, rather than against them. Next comes archery, and here your gender becomes an advantage that male warriors grudgingly acknowledge. Your smaller frame means less weight to support when drawing the bow, and your lower centre of gravity provides stability that your brother envies. The Yumi bow is as tall as you are, crafted from bamboo and mulberry wood, strung with hemp that has been blessed by priests and tested by masters. Each arrow represents a choice, where to aim, how much force to apply, when to release. Miss the target, and you spend the evening crafting replacement arrows by candlelight. Hit it perfectly, and you earn the right to eat first at dinner. The stakes may seem small, but in a world where every advantage matters, even the order of eating can mean the difference between strength and weakness when a battle arrives. The arrows whistle through the air with a sound like seawise, and more often than not they find their mark. Your accuracy has become something of a legend in the compound. Servants whisper that you can thread a needle at 50 paces, though that's probably an exaggeration. Probably. But the real test isn't hitting stationary targets. It's shooting while moving, while under pressure, while your heart pounds so hard it threatens to burst from your chest. Your sensei produces a series of clay targets, each one painted with the face of an enemy warrior. "These are the men who burned the Terra compound last month," she explains matter-of-factly. "These are the faces of the soldiers who violated the women before killing them. Shoot them as they deserve to be shot." The game transforms into something visceral, personal. Each arrow carries the weight of vengeance, of justice, of the understanding that in your world, mercy is luxury that gets people killed. Your shots become more focused, more lethal, more certain. By the time you empty your quiver, 13 clay faces have been shattered, and something inside you has shifted from girl to warrior. Listen to the sound of your own breathing, steady and controlled even after hours of training, proof that your body is learning to find calm in the centre of violence. The afternoon brings lessons that don't involve weapons, but are equally deadly. The intricate dance of feudal politics where one wrong word can trigger wars, and one misunderstood gesture can doom entire families. Your mother takes charge of this education, and her teaching style makes your weapons instructor seem gentle by comparison. Smile, but not too broadly, and it suggests stupidity, she instructs as you practice the formal greetings required when meeting other samurai families. Bow precisely to the correct depth. Too shallow shows disrespect. Too deep suggests weakness. Keep your eyes downcast but aware, submissive but alert to danger. The contradictions would be laughable if lives didn't depend on getting them exactly right. You're seated in the formal receiving room, surrounded by silk screens painted with scenes of natural beauty that contrast sharply with the violent realities being discussed. Your kimono today is a masterpiece of understated elegance. Deep blue silk decorated with silver threads that catch the light like captured moonbeams. But beneath the beauty lies calculation. The colours represent your family's allegiances, The patterns signal your status, and even the way you arrange your sleeves communicates messages to those educated enough to read them. A visiting dignitary arrives, Lord Watanabe, whose domain borders your father's and whose loyalty has been questioned in recent weeks. You kneel in the prescribed position, hands folded, presenting the image of perfect femininity while your mind catalogues every detail about the man. His clothes are expensive but travel-stained. His sword shows signs of recent use. His eyes dart toward the exits more often than politeness requires. The conversation flows like poisoned honey, sweet on the surface, deadly beneath. Your father and Lord Watanabe discuss the weather, the rice harvest, the beauty of the cherry blossoms, while actually negotiating alliance terms that could affect the lives of thousands. You remain silent, invisible, which gives you the perfect opportunity to observe what the men miss. The nervous twitch in Watanabe's left eye when certain names are mentioned, the way his hand unconsciously moves toward his sword when discussing the Tyra clan's recent defeats. Your mother catches your attention with the slightest movement of her fan, a signal you've been taught to recognize since childhood. She wants you to serve tea, but the way she angles the fan tells you this isn't about hospitality. It's a test. How you pour the tea, how you present it, how you comport yourself during this crucial moment will be judged by both families and will influence decisions that reach far beyond this room. You rise with practiced grace, every movement deliberate and controlled. The tea ceremony requires absolute precision. The water must be the perfect temperature, the tea whisked to exactly the right consistency, each gesture flowing into the next like scenes in a perfectly choreographed dance. One mistake, one moment of clumsiness, and you bring shame not just on yourself, but on your entire lineage. But here's what makes this moment truly dangerous. While you're performing this feminine ritual, your weapons, training hasn't vanished. Your hands may be delicately arranging tea bowls, but they remember the weight of the naginata. Your posture may be submissive, but your awareness encompasses every potential threat in the room. You're simultaneously the perfect embodiment of Japanese femininity, and a lethal weapon disguised as decoration. As you kneel before Lord Watanabe to offer him tea, you notice something the men have missed. A small cut on his hand, recently healed. Exactly the type that comes from hasty sword work. Your eyes meet his for just a moment, and in that instant, you both understand that you've seen what he hoped to hide. The knowledge passes between you like a shared secret, dangerous and electric. The meeting concludes with elaborate courtesies and promises of continued friendship that everyone knows are worthless. After Watanabe departs, your parents debrief you on every aspect of your performance. Your tea ceremony was flawless, your deportment beyond reproach, your observations astute. But the real lesson comes in your mother's final words. A woman's greatest weapon isn't her naginata or her bow, it's her ability to be underestimated. Outside, the sun sets behind the mountains, painting the sky the colour of blood and gold. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new tests, new opportunities to prove that honour and survival aren't mutually exclusive. They're partners in a dance as old as steel itself. You stand before your mirror in the pre-dawn darkness, but this isn't the peaceful morning routine of yesterday. Tonight, word arrived that enemy forces are moving through the mountain passes, and by tomorrow's end, you may be either celebrating victory or preparing for an honourable death. Your reflection stares back with eyes that have aged years in mere hours. The process of preparing for potential battle as an Onna-Bugeisha requires a transformation that would confuse modern sensibilities. You begin by applying white powder to your face, not for beauty, but for recognition. In the chaos of combat, allies need to identify each other instantly, and the pale mask serves as both war paint and funeral preparation. If you die today, you'll at least die looking like the noble warrior you've trained your entire life to become. Your mother enters without announcement, carrying the family's most precious possession, armour that has been passed down through 5 generations of warrior women. The domaru is unlike the heavy plate armour of European knights. Instead, it's constructed of thousands of small iron scales laced together with silk cords, creating protection that moves like a second skin while deflecting arrows and blade strikes. The craftsmanship represents months of work by the master artisans, each scale individually shaped and lacquered in colours that identify your clan from across a battlefield. Your great-grandmother wore this when she defended Osaka Castle, your mother explains as she helps you into the complex garment. Your grandmother died wearing it at the Battle of Dan-no-Ura. Your aunt survived 3 siege defences in this armour. Each piece carries stories written in dents and scratches, a genealogy of violence that connects you to every woman who understood that sometimes preservation requires destruction. The process of donning the armour is ritualistic, meditative. First comes the fundoshi, a loincloth that provides modesty even in death. Then the hadajuban, reinforced with padding to prevent the armour from chafing during extended wear. The domaru itself goes on piece by piece, the breastplate with its elaborate knots and ties, the shoulder guards that can deflect downward sword strikes, the arm protection that leaves your hands free for weapon work. But the most crucial piece is the sword, the large rectangular shoulder guards that extend down to protect your upper arms. These aren't just armour. They're canvases that display your family's mourn, the circular emblems that identify your loyalties in a battle. Today you wear the Minamoto crest, 3 mountain peaks beneath a rising sun, simple in design but complex in meaning. Every enemy who sees this symbol will understand that you serve one of the most powerful clans in Japan, and that killing you will bring both honour and terrible vengeance. Your weapons require equal attention. The naginata receives a final sharpening, its edge tested against a piece of silk that parts like smoke at the blade's touch. The wakizashi, your shorter backup sword, slides into its scabbard with a whisper that sounds almost like a prayer. Your tanto, the knife that serves both as utility tool and final resort, hangs from your obi in a position that allows quick access with either hand. The transformation reaches completion with the application of your kabuto, not a helmet in the Western sense, but a work of art that happens to provide protection. The iron bowl fits your head perfectly, customized by armourers who understand that a loose helmet means a separated head. The elaborate decorations aren't mere vanity. The May date, the front crest, serves as a targeting priority indicator. Enemy commanders will aim for the most ornate helmets, assuming they mark high-value targets. Looking in the mirror now, the person staring back barely resembles the young woman who woke before dawn. You've become a fusion of elegance and lethality, beauty and terror, grace and violence. The white face paint makes your eyes appear larger, more intense. The armour transforms your silhouette into something imposing, threatening, undeniably martial. Your mother performs the final ritual toa, binding your hair with silk cords in a style that will keep it from interfering with your vision during combat. Remember, she whispers as she works, if capture becomes inevitable, the tanto is sharp enough. You both understand she's not discussing utility cutting. The compound outside has transformed as well. Servants who yesterday prepared tea and tended gardens now sharpen weapons and prepare medical supplies. Your father's retainers move with the efficient urgency of men who know that dawn will bring either triumph or catastrophe. The air tastes of metal and anticipation, sharp as blade oil and twice as dangerous. Listen to the sound of armour plates shifting as you move, a percussion that announces your presence and intentions to anyone within hearing range. The enemy arrives with the sunrise, and their first mistake is assuming that the women they glimpse through the compound's windows are helpless civilians waiting for rescue. You watch from the concealed position behind the garden wall as the advanced scouts approach, their confidence evident in their casual formations and careless noise discipline. They have no idea that they're walking into a trap designed by minds that learned strategy alongside flower arrangement. Your role in the coming battle represents something that Western military thinking has rarely grasped: the integration of domestic defenders with professional warriors. You're not fighting despite being a woman. You're fighting because being a woman in feudal Japan means understanding that your home, your family, and your honour are targets that require active defence rather than passive protection. The first wave of attackers discovers this reality when they attempt to scale the outer walls. Hidden archer positions that appeared to be decorative garden elements suddenly bristle with arrows launched by female defenders whose accuracy has been honed by years of practice. The element of surprise lasts exactly long enough to eliminate half the assault force before they understand what they're facing. Your position grants you a clear view of the main courtyard, where your father's samurai have formed a defensive line designed to channel attackers into killing zones. But your attention focuses on something the male warriors can't see from their positions, a secondary force approaching through the bamboo grove that borders the family cemetery. This group moves with the professional silence of men who understand that victory often belongs to those who arrive from unexpected directions. The decision you make in the next 30 seconds will determine whether your family's compound stands or falls, whether your parents live to see another sunrise, whether the Minamoto clan maintains its foothold in this strategic valley. Oh pressure. You signal to your mother, who occupies a similar position on the opposite side of the courtyard. The hand gestures you exchange would be invisible to anyone not trained in the silent communication system developed by generations of female samurai. She acknowledges your report about the flanking force and begins repositioning the household defenders to counter the threat. But here's where your unique training becomes crucial. Unlike the male samurai, who must maintain their positions in the formal battle line, you possess the mobility to move between defensive sectors without disrupting the overall strategy. Your role is fluid, adaptive, responsive to developing threats that require immediate action rather than committee discussion. You slip through the compound using passages that appear to be decorative elements, but actually serve as internal movement corridors. The architects who designed your family home understood that in feudal Japan, every building is potentially a fortress, every garden a battlefield, every decorative screen a potential shield position. The flanking force has advanced closer than expected, their movement covered by the sound of battle in the main courtyard. Through gaps in the bamboo, you count at least 15 men, all armed with katana and wearing armour that marks them as professional soldiers rather than bandits or opportunists. Their leader carries a war fan decorated with an unfamiliar mon. Not local forces then, but specialists brought in specifically for this attack. Your naginata feels perfectly balanced in your hands as you consider tactical options. Direct confrontation would be suicide. 15 against 1 represents impossible odds regardless of skill level. But warfare isn't always about direct confrontation. Sometimes it's about creating chaos at precisely the right moment, disrupting enemy timing, forcing their plans to adapt to circumstances they didn't anticipate. The bamboo grove itself provides the answer. The stalks are dry from the recent weeks of clear weather, and the wind patterns you've observed since childhood mean that fire started at the grove's eastern edge will spread rapidly toward the positions occupied by the flanking force. Not enough to kill them, but sufficient to destroy their concealment and force them into premature action. You retrieve the fire-starting materials from their concealed position, bamboo containers filled with oil-soaked rags and steel and flint sparking devices that can ignite combustible materials even in adverse conditions. The technique requires precise timing. Too early and the enemy adapts their approach, too late and they complete their flanking maneuver before the fire affects their movements. The flames catch and spread with satisfying speed, sending smoke billowing through the grove and forcing the enemy soldiers into visibility just as your father's defenders spot them from the main fortifications. The resulting crossfire eliminates most of the threat before they can organise a coherent response. But victory comes with costs that history books rarely mention. As you watch your enemy soldiers die in the flames you started, something inside you acknowledges that you've crossed a threshold that can never be recrossed. You're no longer a girl playing at being a warrior. You're a killer whose actions have directly caused death. Listen to the crackling of burning bamboo, a sound that will haunt your dreams for years to come, mixing beauty and destruction in ways that define your existence. As an Onna-Bugeisha, the battle ends as the sun reaches its zenith, but the work of an Onna-Bugeisha continues long after the last sword stroke. Victory requires more than defeating enemies. It demands managing the complex aftermath of violence in a society where honour and pragmatism must coexist in careful balance. You remove your helmet as you survey the compound, noting damage that will require weeks to repair and losses that can never be replaced. 7 of your father's retainers died in the fighting, their bodies now arranged in the formal positions required for proper funeral rites. 3 more suffered wounds that will end their careers as warriors, transforming them from protectors into protected in a single morning of combat. The enemy losses were heavier, 23 dead, including their commander, whose elaborate armour now decorates your father's trophy collection. But numbers tell only part of the story. Your actions in the bamboo grove have elevated your status within the household and among your father's allies, but they've also marked you as a target for future enemy operations. Word will spread that Lord Minamoto's daughter possesses both the skill and ruthlessness to affect battlefield outcomes. That reputation brings opportunities and threats in equal measure. The most immediate concern involves the wounded enemy soldiers who survived the battle. Feudal Japanese warfare operates according to S codes that that seem contradictory to modern sensibilities. Enemies who fight honourably deserve respectful treatment, but those who employ treachery forfeit any claim to mercy. Your father and his advisors must determine which category applies to men who attempted a sneak attack, but conducted themselves bravely once discovered. Your role in these discussions reveals another aspect of the Onna-Bugeisha experience. Despite your proven combat effectiveness, you're not invited to the formal council where these decisions are made. Instead, your input flows through your mother, who attends as the household's senior female authority. The system acknowledges your value while maintaining the social structures that define everyone's position in the hierarchy. This indirect influence proves more powerful than direct participation might have been. Your mother presents your tactical observations and strategic recommendations without attribution, allowing the male counsellors to adopt your suggestions without losing face by accepting advice from a young woman. The art of invisible leadership you're learning often achieves better results than visible command. The afternoon brings tasks that require different skills but equal importance. Caring for the wounded demands knowledge of anatomy, pharmacology and psychology that your martial training only partially provides. You work alongside the compound's medical practitioners, applying pressure to bleeding wounds, administering pain-relieving herbs, and providing comfort to men whose military careers ended this morning. One wounded enemy soldier, barely older than yourself, stares at you with confusion that has nothing to do with his injuries. "You were the one in the bamboo," he whispers when you approach with water and bandages. "I saw you moving through the smoke. You fought like a demon." The mixture of fear and respect in his voice reflects the reputation you've earned in the space of a few hours. You don't respond to his observation, but you don't deny it either. Let him carry word back to his clan that the Minamoto compound harbours female warriors whose capabilities exceed their assumptions. Sometimes the best deterrent against future attacks is the enemy's uncertainty about what they might face. Evening arrives with ceremonies that honour both the living and the dead. Your father's retainers who died defending the compound receive full military funerals, their weapons buried alongside them, and their names added to the ancestral shrine. The enemy dead are treated with the respect due to brave soldiers, their bodies returned to their families with messages expressing regret for the necessity of their deaths. Your own role in the day's events receives acknowledgement in the form of a private conversation with your firm, the first time he's spoken to you directly about martial matters since your training began. "Your actions today prevented disaster," he states simply. "Without your warning about the flanking force, we would have been overwhelmed." The praise feels heavier than any armour, more valuable than any treasure, but recognition brings responsibility. Your father continues, "Other clans will hear about today's battle. They'll understand that attacking our compound means facing defenders they didn't expect. Some will be deterred by this knowledge. Others will see it as a challenge that requires greater planning and stronger forces." The implication hangs in the air like incense smoke. Your success has made future attacks more likely, not less. The day concludes with personal reflection that takes place in the privacy of your chambers, surrounded by armour that still carries the scent of smoke and the weight of choices that can never be undone. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new tests of the balance between feminine grace and warrior ferocity that defines your existence. Listen to the evening insects beginning their nightly chorus, innocent sounds that remind you that life continues even in the aftermath of violence, that beauty and brutality share the same world. 3 months after the battle, your daily routine has evolved into something that would mystify both ancient courtiers and modern observers. A careful choreography that balances deadly efficiency with cultural expectations that seem designed to contradict each other. You rise while the compound still sleeps, when the only sounds are distant temple bells and the soft breathing of servants who dream of simpler lives than yours. The wooden floor feels cold against your bare feet as you perform the purification ritual that prepares both body and spirit for the day's training. The water in your basin has been blessed by the local priest, though you suspect the kami care more about your intentions than your ablutions. Still, ritual matters in a world where the difference between sacred and profane can be measured in millimeters of blade positioning. Your training clothes reflect the pragmatic reality of female martial arts in feudal Japan, a modified hakama that provides freedom of movement while maintaining the appearance of traditional feminine dress. The fabric is silk, because anything less would shame your family's status, but it's reinforced at stress points with cotton backing that won't tear during vigorous practice. Appearance and function must coexist, even when they seem to hate each other. The practice yard waits in pre-dawn silence, wooden floors worn smooth by decades of female warriors who understood that survival requires preparation that never ends. Your naginata is in its designated position, blade covered to protect the edge that could slice through silk scarves or enemy necks with equal ease. The weapon has become an extension of your will, your body, your understanding of space and time, and the precise moment when defense transforms into attack. Your sensei arrives as the first rays of sunlight penetrate the paper screens that surround the training area. Her movements carry the fluid precision of someone who learned to kill before she learned to read, and her presence fills the space like incense, pervasive, calming, and faintly dangerous. Today we practice the 8th kata, she announces, and your stomach tightens because the 8th kata simulates combat against multiple opponents who attack from different angles simultaneously. The naginata feels heavier this morning. Perhaps your awareness has sharpened to the point where you notice weight that previously escaped attention. The weapon's balance point sits exactly 18 inches from the butt end, creating leverage that can generate devastating cutting power if you understand the physics involved. Miss the sweet spot by even a finger's width, and the blade becomes clumsy, ineffective, more likely to trap you than free you. You begin with the opening stance, feet positioned in the precise alignment that your sensei has corrected thousands of times. Weight distributed 70% on the back foot, 30% forward, creating stability that can shift instantly in any direction without telegraph your intentions to observant enemies. Your hands grip the shaft with the spacing that took months to perfect. Too close together and you lose leverage, too far apart and you sacrifice speed. The first movement flows like water, the blade tracing an arc through the air that would separate an approaching enemy's head from his shoulders if timing and distance aligned properly. But this isn't about individual techniques. It's about combinations, transitions, the seamless flow between offensive and defensive actions that creates the combat dance unique to naginata warfare. Your sensei calls out attacks from imaginary enemies. Sword strike from the right, spear thrust from behind, arrow volley from above. Each call requires instant response, perfect technique, and the mental flexibility to shift between completely different tactical situations without pause or confusion. Mistake the appropriate counter for even one attack, and in real combat you'd discover that death provides excellent feedback on technical errors. The practice accelerates until you're moving in constant motion, the naginata spinning and cutting and blocking in patterns that feel choreographed but respond to random attack scenarios that test every aspect of your training. Sweat soaks through your silk clothing despite the cool morning air, and your breathing shifts into the rhythmic pattern that allows extended exertion without losing focus or precision. But the most challenging aspect isn't physical, it's mental. The 8th kata requires simultaneous awareness of multiple threat vectors while maintaining perfect form in every technique. Your mind must track imaginary enemies while your body executes real movements, creating a state of consciousness that exists nowhere outside martial arts training. Think of it as meditation with weapons, prayer through violence, spiritual development via activities that could easily kill you. The session concludes when your sensei calls a halt, though your body wants to continue moving. Caught in the momentum of techniques that build upon each other like verses in a poem written with steel. You bow to the weapon, the training space and your instructor, acknowledging the privilege of learning arts that most people will never comprehend, let alone master. Listen to the sound of your own heartbeat, steady and strong despite the intensity of training, proof that your body is adapting to demands that would have been impossible months ago. The afternoon lesson takes place not in the practice yard but in your father's study, surrounded by scrolls that contain the collected wisdom of warriors who face death with the same weapons you're learning to master. Your sensei sits in formal Caesar position, her own naginata resting on a silk cloth that displays the weapon like the work of art it truly represents. Today's subject involves something more dangerous than technique, the mental framework that transforms physical skill into spiritual discipline. The naginata teaches lessons that the katana cannot, she begins, her voice carrying the weight of knowledge earned through decades of study and actual combat. The sword is direct, linear, focused on the single point where blade meets target. The naginata is circular, flowing, concerned with controlling space and creating opportunities rather than forcing decisive moments. The distinction seems subtle, until you consider its implications for how you approach not just combat, but life itself. She demonstrates by the standing and moving through a slow-motion technique that resembles dancing more than fighting. The blade traces patterns in the air while her body flows through positions that maintain perfect balance, regardless of which direction the next movement requires. Watch the relationship between the weapon and the space around it, she instructs. The naginata doesn't seek to dominate its environment, it seeks to harmonize with it, to find the natural flow that makes resistance impossible. This philosophy reflects broader concepts that define the female warrior's approach to conflict resolution. Where male samurai might rely on superior strength or aggressive tactics to overwhelm opponents, the Onna-Bugeisha tradition emphasizes timing, positioning, and the redirection of enemy force rather than direct opposition. Think of it as martial arts judo applied to medieval warfare, using your opponent's momentum against them while conserving your own energy for decisive moments. The scrolls around you contain writings by legendary female warriors whose names have become synonymous with tactical brilliance. Tomoe Gozen, whose mounted archery skills enabled her to break enemy cavalry charges single-handedly. Hangaku Gozen, who defended Tosukanojo Fortress against overwhelming odds through superior positioning and psychological warfare. Each woman developed personal interpretations of naginata philosophy that reflected their unique circumstances and challenges. Your sensei retrieves one scroll in particular, its silk backing worn smooth by countless readings. Tomoe wrote this after the Battle of Owazu, she explains, unrolling the document to reveal calligraphy that flows like the weapon techniques it describes. She said that the naginata taught her to see patterns in chaos, to find order within destruction, to remain centered when everything around her dissolved into violence. Reading Tomoe's words, you begin to understand that mastering the naginata requires more than physical conditioning or technical proficiency. It demands a fundamental shift in how you perceive reality, from linear thinking to circular awareness, from confrontational approaches to adaptive strategies, from ego-driven action to ego-dissolving response. The weapon becomes a teacher whose lessons extend far beyond martial applications. The philosophical framework includes concepts that seem contradictory until you experience them directly through training. Assertive passivity, the ability to control situations through non-action rather than aggressive intervention. Flexible strength, maintaining core principles while adapting tactics to meet changing circumstances. Visible invisibility, being fully present in the moment while remaining unnoticed by potential threats until action becomes necessary. These principles apply to all aspects of your life as an hit. Onna-Bugeisha, not just combat situations. When navigating the complex social hierarchies of feudal society, you employ the same circular thinking that guides naginata techniques. Instead of directly challenging restrictions placed on women, you find ways to achieve your objectives through paths that minimize resistance while maximizing effectiveness. Your sensei demonstrates this approach by describing how she once resolved a diplomatic crisis that threatened to escalate into open warfare between neighboring clans. Instead of taking sides or proposing compromises that neither party could accept, she created a situation where both leaders could claim victory while actually achieving the peaceful resolution she desired. The naginata way, she explains, is to cut through problems at the point where they cease to be problems. But the philosophy contains darker elements that reflect the reality of living in a world where violence remains a constant possibility. The scrolls describe techniques for psychological preparation that allow warriors to commit necessary killing without losing their humanity in the process. Methods for maintaining compassion while exercising lethal force. Approaches to death, both giving and receiving it, that transform inevitable brutality into meaningful sacrifice. This mental training proves as demanding as any physical exercise, requiring you to confront aspects of existence that most people spend lifetimes avoiding. What does it mean to take a life in defense of principles you value? How do you maintain ethical standards when survival requires actions that violate everything you've been taught about proper behavior? Where is the line between necessary violence and gratuitous cruelty, and how do you recognize when you're about to cross it? The session concludes with meditation that incorporates weapon handling, moving through forms so slowly that each position becomes a moment of contemplation about balance, intention, and the intersection of spiritual development with practical application. Your mind settles into the quiet focus that allows deep learning to occur, the state of consciousness where wisdom transfers from teacher to student through channels that bypass normal intellectual processing. Listen to the whisper of silk scrolls being rolled and stored, sounds that connect you to centuries of women who faced the same questions and found their own answers through dedication to the way of the blade. 6 months after your first combat experience, another test arrives in the form of a night attack that differs significantly from the daylight assault that introduced you to actual warfare. This time, the enemies approach with professional stealth, their movements coordinated by someone who understands both your compound's defensive capabilities and the tactical innovations you've implemented since the previous battle. You wake not to the sound of alarm bells, but to the subtler warning of your sensei's hand on Sotoi, your shoulder. "They're in the outer gardens," she whispers, her voice carrying the calm urgency that characterizes someone who has survived multiple nocturnal combat situations. At least 20, possibly more. Professional soldiers, not bandits. They know about our archer positions from last time. The implications settle over you like cold silk. This attack represents a calculated response to your previous success, enemy adaptation to tactics that are no longer surprising. Your armor goes on faster now, muscle memory guiding your hands through the complex process of donning protection that must be both comprehensive and flexible. But tonight's equipment includes modifications based on lessons learned during your first battle. Padding, in places where the armor chafed during extended combat, oil applied to metal surfaces that might reflect moonlight and reveal your position, cloth wrappings around anything that could make noise during movement. The naginata feels different in actual combat conditions than it does during practice sessions. The weight remains the same, but your awareness of its lethality has intensified to the point where simply holding the weapon changes your mental state. This isn't a training tool or ceremonial object. It's a device designed specifically for ending human lives. And tonight you may need to employ it for exactly that purpose. Your assigned position takes advantage of lessons learned from naginata philosophy about controlling space rather than simply defending fixed points. Instead of manning a static guard post, you're tasked with mobile defense, moving through predetermined routes that allow you to respond to enemy breaches wherever they occur, while maintaining the ability to withdraw and reposition if circumstances require tactical flexibility. The outer gardens provide perfect terrain for naginata combat. Enough open space to utilize the weapon's reach advantage, sufficient obstacles to break up enemy formations, and multiple escape routes if retreat becomes necessary. The enemy force is divided into smaller groups that attempt to penetrate the compound's defences from different directions simultaneously, a tactic that would overwhelm fixed defensive positions but creates opportunities for mobile defenders to defeat isolated units in detail. Your first contact occurs near the ornamental pond, where 3 enemy soldiers attempt to cross open ground between the bamboo grove and the main buildings. They move with the professional competence of men who understand stealth techniques, but they're not prepared for a defender who approaches combat as a flowing dance, rather than a series of static positions. The naginata's circular techniques prove devastatingly effective against enemies who expect linear sword fighting. Your opening attack flows from a defensive stance into a sweeping cut that forces all 3 opponents to react simultaneously to threats from unexpected angles. The blade doesn't seek to penetrate armor. It seeks to unbalance, to create openings, to transform organized attack into individual survival responses. One enemy soldier falls immediately, his leg severed at the knee by a technique that redirected his forward momentum into self-destructive collision with your weapon's edge. The second staggers backward, off balance from avoiding a strike that came closer to decapitation than he realized. The third attempts to circle around your flank, but naginata training emphasizes awareness of threats from all directions, and you pivot to meet his approach with a thrust that penetrates his chest armor at the precisely calculated angle that defeats its protection. The engagement lasts less than 30 seconds, but its aftermath requires careful attention to details that determine whether victory becomes lasting success or temporary reprieve. The wounded enemy soldier might provide intelligence about his unit's overall plan, but only if questioned before blood loss renders him unconscious. The dead men's equipment could reveal information about their employer and tactical capabilities. Most importantly, the noise of combat has probably alerted other enemy units to your position, making this location untenable for continued defense operations. The naginata way emphasizes flow and adaptation. You've accomplished your immediate objective of preventing this infiltration, but static defense would invite counterattack from enemies who now know where you are and how you fight. You withdraw through a route that takes you to your next assigned position, while avoiding areas where other enemy units might intercept your movement. The compound's design, which seemed purely aesthetic when you were younger, reveals its tactical sophistication under combat conditions. Decorative screens provide concealment for rapid repositioning. Garden paths that appeared randomly curved actually channel movement along routes that maximize defender advantages while exposing attackers to crossfire from multiple positions. The night develops into a running battle that tests every aspect of your training. Technical skill, physical conditioning, tactical awareness, and the mental discipline required to make life and death decisions while exhausted, stressed, and operating on fragmentary information about enemy capabilities and intentions. Each engagement teaches lessons that no amount of practice could provide, insights about the difference between simulated and actual combat that can only be learned through experience. By dawn, the attack has been repelled, but the cost includes 2 more of your father's retainers dead and significant damage to defensive installations that took months to construct. Your own performance exceeded expectations. 4 confirmed enemy kills, tactical intelligence that help coordinate the overall defense, and proof that female warriors can adapt philosophical training to practical combat requirements. Listen to the morning birds, returning to their songs after hours of silence, nature's confirmation that violence has passed and normal life can resume, at least until the next test arrives. The cherry blossoms fall like snow across the compound's courtyard, their delicate beauty a stark contrast to the martial realities that define your daily existence. Spring has arrived with its eternal promise of renewal, but in feudal Japan, even seasonal beauty carries political implications. The blossoms represent the ephemeral nature of life, the awareness that death can arrive as suddenly and inevitably as petals dropping from branches. Today, that symbolism feels particularly relevant because today brings news that will transform your personal world as dramatically as any enemy attack. Your father's messenger arrives with a scroll bearing the mon of the Takeda clan, their mountain and moon crest instantly recognizable to anyone familiar with the complex alliances that define regional politics. The message appears routine, a request for a meeting to discuss mutual interests between neighbouring domains, but your mother's reaction reveals deeper currents. Her face adopts the careful neutrality that indicates significant developments requiring delicate handling. The meeting takes place in the formal reception hall, where every detail of arrangement communicates messages about status, respect, and hidden intentions. You're not included in the primary discussions, but your position-serving tea provides the perfect opportunity to observe negotiations that will directly affect your future in ways you can't yet comprehend. Lord Takeda's representative is a man of middle years whose diplomatic experience shows in his ability to discuss weighty matters while maintaining the conversational tone appropriate for casual social interaction. But you notice details that the formal courtesies can't disguise. His clothes show signs of hard travel, his sword appears recently sharpened, and his eyes survey the compound's defences with the professional assessment of someone who understands military architecture. The actual proposal emerges gradually through layers of polite indirection that characterize high-level Japanese diplomacy. Lord Takeda seeks to strengthen the alliance between your clans through marriage, specifically a union between his eldest son and a daughter of appropriate rank from your family. The suggestion hangs in the air like incense, beautiful in its implications but carrying undercurrents that could prove either blessing or curse. Your father's response maintains the diplomatic protocol while buying time for careful consideration. Such arrangements require extensive negotiation about dowries, political obligations, territorial adjustments, and the 1,000 other details that transform personal relationships into strategic alliances. But everyone in the room understands that the core question isn't whether such a marriage would benefit both clans, it's which daughter possesses the combination of skills, temperament, and training that would make her suitable for this particular diplomatic challenge. The realization hits you with the force of a naginata thrust to the solar plexus. You are that daughter. Your martial training, political education, and recent combat experience have transformed you from protected family member into strategic asset capable of representing your clan's interests in hostile territory while maintaining the personal relationships that diplomatic marriages require. The cherry blossoms suddenly seem less beautiful and more like falling hopes. After the formal meeting concludes and the diplomatic niceties have been observed, your parents invite you to join them for the private discussion that will determine your future. Your father's expression carries the weight of decisions that affect not just individual lives, but the survival of entire communities. Your mother's demeanour reflects the understanding that comes from personal experience with arranged marriages that must balance political necessity with human happiness. Lord Takeda's son has a reputation as both scholar and warrior, your father begins, his voice carrying the careful neutrality that indicates he's presenting information, rather than advocating for any particular decision. He's educated in Chinese classics, skilled in multiple martial arts, and experienced in the administrative duties required for domain management. By all accounts, he would be a suitable partner for someone of your capabilities. The phrase suitable partner carries implications that extend far beyond personal compatibility. In the world of samurai politics, marriages function as military alliances, trade agreements, hostage exchanges, and cultural bridges simultaneously. Your potential husband wouldn't just be sharing your bed, Hubba-Miss. He'd be sharing responsibility for maintaining peace between domains that have historical reasons for conflict as well as cooperation. Your mother's contribution reveals perspective that only someone who has navigated similar challenges can provide. The Takeda domain includes territories that border hostile clans, she explains matter-of-factly. Any woman who marries into that family must be prepared for the possibility of siege warfare, political assassination, and the social isolation that comes from living among people who view you as a foreign element requiring constant surveillance. The conversation continues through the afternoon, covering practical details that transform abstract concepts like arranged marriage into concrete realities involving travel, housing, personal safety, communication with your birth family, and the gradual process of building relationships in an environment where everyone's loyalty must be earned rather than assumed. By evening, you understand that accepting this proposal means accepting exile to a world where your martial skills might prove as important as your diplomatic capabilities. But the most challenging aspect isn't the practical difficulties, or even the personal sacrifice involved in leaving everything familiar for an uncertain future among strangers. It's the realization that your training as an Onna-Bugeisha has prepared you exactly for this type of challenge. Not just the combat skills, but the mental discipline, tactical thinking, and emotional resilience required to succeed in hostile environments where failure affects more than individual happiness. Listen to the evening wind stirring the fallen cherry blossoms, their movement across stone pathways like whispered reminders that beauty and duty seldom align perfectly, but both must be honoured according to their season. 3 days later, Lord Takeda's son arrives for the formal introduction that will determine whether diplomatic theory translates into personal compatibility. The meeting takes place during the compound's most beautiful hour, early evening, when lantern light begins to compete with fading daylight and the gardens achieve the perfect balance between natural beauty and human artistry. Every detail has been calculated to create favourable impressions while providing opportunities for subtle evaluation of character traits that formal negotiations can't reveal. Takeda Nobuyuki proves to be younger than expected but older in his mannerisms, carrying himself with the controlled precision of someone who learned early that casual words and thoughtless gestures can trigger political crises. His clothes reflect wealth without ostentation, his weapons show signs of actual use rather than mere ceremonial display, and his demeanour suggests intelligence tempered by enough experience to understand the difference between knowledge and wisdom. The initial conversation follows prescribed patterns designed to allow both parties to assess compatibility, while maintaining the diplomatic fiction that this meeting represents casual social interaction rather than strategic negotiation. You discuss poetry, sharing classical references that demonstrate education, while revealing aesthetic preferences that hint at deeper character traits. The exchange flows naturally, despite its artificial constraints, suggesting that intellectual compatibility might develop into genuine partnership given sufficient time and goodwill. But the real evaluation occurs during the martial arts demonstration that your father has arranged as entertainment for the occasion. Nobayuki's performance with the katana reveals technical mastery combined with tactical awareness that goes beyond mere sword school training. His movements show the economical precision of someone who understands that combat effectiveness depends on conservation of energy and exploitation of opportunities rather than dramatic displays of superior skill. When he requests permission to observe your naginata demonstration, the moment transforms from social courtesy into professional assessment. You perform the 10th kata, the advanced form that simulates combat against multiple opponents while incorporating defensive techniques specifically designed for female warriors facing larger, stronger adversaries. Each movement must display technical excellence while avoiding any appearance of aggression that might be interpreted as challenge to male authority. His reaction provides crucial insight into his character and the nature of any future relationship you might develop. Instead of the patronizing praise or uncomfortable silence that often greet female martial displays, he offers specific technical observations that demonstrate both respect for your skill and understanding of naginata tactics. Your timing on the reverse cut sequence, he comments, creates openings that most opponents wouldn't recognize until too late to counter effectively. The observation reveals someone who views your martial abilities as strategic evaluation rather than mere courtesy. His understanding of naginata philosophy suggests someone who views martial partnership as essential to political alliance rather than an inconvenience to be tolerated. The evening progresses through carefully orchestrated interactions designed to assess compatibility across multiple dimensions. You demonstrate tea ceremony mastery while he observes your precision and grace under pressure. He performs calligraphy while you evaluate his artistic sensitivity and attention to detail. Each exchange reveals character traits that formal negotiations could never expose: patience, creativity, respect for tradition, adaptability to unexpected circumstances. But the most revealing moment occurs during the poetry competition your mother has arranged as evening entertainment. The challenge requires each participant to compose verses responding to themes of duty, honor, and personal sacrifice. Nobayuki's contribution surprises you with its emotional depth and philosophical sophistication. Cherry blossoms fall, and not from weakness, but knowing their beauty serves spring. The poem suggests someone who understands that personal desires must sometimes yield to larger purposes without losing essential dignity. Your own response carefully balances feminine delicacy with warrior strength. Morning frost melts clean, yet steel beneath grows sharper in winter's embrace. The metaphor communicates your readiness to adapt to harsh circumstances while maintaining the core identity that makes you valuable as both diplomatic representative and potential partner. The subtle approval in his eyes confirms that your meaning has been understood and appreciated. This isn't just attraction or political calculation. It's recognition between two people who understand the complex dance of maintaining individual integrity within strategic relationships that serve purposes larger than personal happiness. As the formal introduction concludes, both families understand that the foundation for successful alliance exists, theirs. Practical negotiations about dowries, territorial adjustments, and political obligations can proceed with confidence that the human elements necessary for long-term stability are present. But you also understand that accepting this proposal means accepting exile to uncertainty, where your survival will depend on skills you're still developing and judgments you're still learning to trust. The decision ultimately rests with you, though family pressure and political necessity significantly narrow your options. Tomorrow's sunrise will bring either continued preparation for departure to an unknown future, or the beginning of alternative arrangements that might prove even more challenging. The cherry blossoms continue falling outside, each petal a reminder that beauty and duty seldom align perfectly, but both must be honoured according to their season. 2 weeks later, the formal betrothal ceremony transforms your family's compound into a stage where personal futures and political destinies interweave like silk threads in a master weaver's hands. You kneel in the reception hall wearing the most elaborate kimono your family owns, deep crimson silk decorated with gold phoenixes that symbolize rebirth and transformation. But beneath the ceremonial beauty, you wear the thin iron plates that have become as natural as breathing, a reminder that even in marriage, an Onna-Bugeisha remains prepared for violence. The ritual itself follows protocols developed over centuries to manage the transfer of women between powerful families while maintaining the diplomatic fiction that marriage represents personal choice rather than political necessity. Sake cups are exchanged, formal vows spoken, and gifts presented according to precise hierarchies that communicate messages about status, respect, and future expectations. Your hands remain steady throughout the ceremony, though each gesture feels weighted with the knowledge that you're pledging not just your body but your martial skills to serve interests that may conflict with everything you've been taught to value. Nobuyuki's behaviour during the ceremony provides additional insight into your future circumstances. He treats you with respect that acknowledges your capabilities while maintaining the social forms required in mixed company. When presenting the ceremonial wakizashi that symbolises your continued warrior status within his household, he meets your eyes directly, a subtle signal that he understands you're not just acquiring a wife but gaining a strategic asset, whose effectiveness depends on being treated as a valued partner rather than decorative possession. But the most significant moment occurs during the private exchange of personal gifts that takes place away from the formal audience. Your offering to him is a set of arrow points you forged yourself, each one inscribed with characters representing different martial virtues: courage, precision, adaptability, honour. The craftsmanship demonstrates skills that extend beyond combat into areas traditionally associated with male artisans, establishing your credibility as someone whose contributions will extend beyond conventional feminine roles. His gift to you proves equally thoughtful and revealing, a naginata crafted by the Takeda Domain's master weaponsmith, balanced specifically for your height and fighting style based on observations from your demonstration. The weapon represents both acceptance of your martial identity and investment in your continued development as a warrior. But more importantly, the inscribed dedication acknowledges you as partner in both peace and war, language that suggests genuine respect rather than mere diplomatic courtesy. The celebration that follows provides opportunities to observe the political dynamics you'll soon navigate as an outsider in the Takeda Domain. Conversations flow in patterns that reveal alliances, tensions, and unresolved conflicts that could affect your safety and effectiveness as both wife and warrior. You catalogue details about family relationships, economic interests, and military preparations that might prove crucial during future crises when quick decisions could determine survival for yourself and those you'll be responsible for protecting. Your future mother-in-law's behaviour proves particularly instructive. Her formal courtesy masks careful evaluation of your suitability for managing household responsibilities while maintaining the martial training that makes you valuable as more than conventional wife material. She tests your knowledge of estate management, herb cultivation for medical purposes, and the diplomatic protocols required for entertaining visitors whose true loyalties remain uncertain. Each question assesses capabilities that could prove decisive during siege situations when traditional gender roles collapse under survival pressures. The evening concludes with private conversations between your parents and Nobuyuki that finalize arrangements for your departure and integration into the Takeda household. You're not included in these discussions, but your mother later briefs you on expectations that will govern your early months in unfamiliar territory, behavior standards, relationship protocols, and the gradual process of establishing trust with people who view you as both asset and potential liability. The wedding ceremony itself, scheduled for the following month, will mark your transformation from Minamoto daughter to Takeda wife, but tonight's betrothal represents the point of no return. Your childhood ends here, replaced by adult responsibilities that will test every aspect of your training while demanding emotional resilience you're still developing. The cherry blossoms that dominated your decision-making have been replaced by autumn leaves that speak of endings and new beginnings, intertwined in ways that make separation impossible. Listen to the autumn wind moving through the maple trees, its voice carrying both promise and warning in the same breath, like the whispered prayers of ancestors who faced similar choices with similar uncertainty. The morning of your departure arrives wrapped in mist that makes the familiar compound appear dreamlike, as if your childhood home is already fading into memory before you've taken the first step away from it. Your travelling party assembles in the courtyard, samurai escorts, servants carrying your possessions, and the palanquin that will carry you to your new life like an elegant prison decorated with silk curtains and family crests. Your final preparations reveal the complexity of transitioning between two worlds, while maintaining the skills that define your identity. The travelling kimono you wear appears purely feminine, soft blue silk decorated with autumn flowers, but incorporates hidden modifications that allow weapon access and rapid movement if circumstances require combat response. Your hair arrangement looks conventionally bridal while concealing thin, metal pins that could serve as makeshift weapons during emergency situations. The most significant challenge involves selecting which weapons to bring and how to transport them without causing diplomatic complications. Your naginata travels in a decorated case that presents it as ceremonial gift rather than active weapon, though everyone involved understands its true nature. Your archery equipment requires similar disguise, presented as sporting goods for entertainment rather than implements of war. Only your tanto travels openly, its presence justified by traditional requirements that samurai wives maintain means for honourable suicide if capture becomes inevitable. Your mother's final instructions focus on survival strategies that extend beyond martial techniques into the psychological and social realm, where female warriors must navigate dangers that men never face. How to maintain training routines without appearing to challenge male authority. Methods for gathering intelligence about potential threats while fulfilling conventional wife duties. Techniques for building relationships with other women in the household who might provide warnings about developing political situations. But the most crucial advice concerns managing the isolation that comes with being permanently separated from your birth family and support network. Letters will be rare and carefully monitored by both households. Visits home may be impossible for years, if ever. Your emotional survival will depend on creating new relationships while maintaining the inner strength that comes from knowing your own worth, independent of others' opinions or approval. The farewell ceremony itself proves more difficult than anticipated. Your father's formal blessing carries undertones of regret mixed with pride. Pride in your accomplishments, regret that circumstances require sending his most capable daughter to serve another family's interests. Your mother's embrace communicates years of shared training and understanding that can never be fully replaced by any future relationship. Your brother's awkward attempt at humour masks his understanding that you may never return, that this departure represents permanent transformation rather than temporary relocation. The servants who helped raise you offer small gifts that speak of affection earned through daily interactions rather than formal obligation. The archer who taught you to thread needles at 50 paces presents a set of practice arrows inscribed with his personal motto: accuracy serves honour. The weapons instructor who shaped your naginata technique offers a bottle of blade oil, mixed according to a secret family recipe passed down through generations of warrior women. But the most touching moment comes when the compound's children gather to wave goodbye, their innocent faces reflecting the loss of someone who represented possibility in their young lives. To them, you embodied the idea that birth circumstances don't have to determine life outcomes, that skill and determination can create opportunities beyond traditional limitations. Your departure removes that living example of alternative futures, making their worlds slightly smaller and more conventional. The journey to the Takeda domain takes 3 days through mountain passes that offer spectacular scenery and abundant opportunities for ambush by bandits or enemy forces. Your escort remains vigilant throughout the trip, understanding that capturing the new Takeda bride would provide valuable leverage for anyone seeking to disrupt the political alliance your marriage represents. You travel with weapons concealed but accessible, prepared to defend yourself if the samurai protection proves inadequate. The landscape gradually changes as you move from familiar territory into regions controlled by your new family. Different architectural styles, unfamiliar accents, subtle variations in customs that mark you as outsider despite your formal acceptance into the household. Each mile travelled represents increasing distance from everything that provided security and identity during your formative years. Your arrival at the Takeda compound coincides with sunset, the golden light making everything appear warm and welcoming, despite your internal uncertainty about what awaits beyond the gates. The assembled household greets you with formal courtesy that masks careful evaluation of the young woman who will now share responsibility for their collective survival and prosperity. Nobuyuki's presence provides reassurance, his greeting balancing respect for your journey with acknowledgement of the courage required to leave everything familiar for an uncertain future among strangers. But even his support can't entirely eliminate the knowledge that you must now prove yourself worthy of the trust placed in you. While adapting to expectations and protocols, you're still learning to understand. The first night in your new home passes quietly, surrounded by unfamiliar sounds and scents that remind you constantly of your changed circumstances. Tomorrow will begin the process of integration that will determine whether your marriage becomes successful partnership or elaborate diplomatic failure. Tonight, you lie awake listening to mountain winds that carry no memories of your childhood, only promises and warnings about the future you must now create for yourself. 6 weeks into your new life as a Takeda wife, you wake before dawn to discover that integration into an unfamiliar household proves more complex than any combat training could have prepared you for. The compound's rhythms differ subtly from your birth family's routines. Prayers begin earlier, meals follow different schedules, and the informal hierarchies that govern daily interactions operate according to unwritten rules you're still struggling to decode. Your morning training sessions have become a delicate negotiation between maintaining essential skills and avoiding behaviour that might be interpreted as challenge to the established order. The practice yard you've been assigned sits in a secluded corner of the compound, where your weapon work won't disturb others or attract unwanted attention from visitors who might question the appropriateness of a bride engaging in martial activities. The isolation provides necessary privacy but also emphasises your status as outsider, whose full integration remains conditional on proving your value through conventional wife duties. The naginata feels different in this unfamiliar space, its familiar weight unchanged but somehow less comfortable when wielded away from the environments where you learn to trust your abilities. The forms flow correctly, but without your sensei's guidance or the supportive presence of family members who understood your dual identity as both woman and warrior, the practice sessions feel incomplete, disconnected from the spiritual foundations that originally gave meaning to physical technique. Your relationship with the household's other women evolves through careful stages that require diplomatic skills your mother never fully prepared you for. The senior wife, Nobuyuki's aunt, maintains cordial distance that tests your patience while providing opportunities to demonstrate respect for her authority. Her approval or disapproval will significantly influence your acceptance by the female community, whose support you need for both practical assistance and emotional survival during the inevitable periods when political tensions make life complicated. The servants present different challenges: how to command respect and obedience, while remaining approachable enough to gather the informal intelligence that flows through household gossip networks. Your martial reputation creates useful mystique, but also generates wariness among women who worry that your unconventional background might bring unwanted attention from enemies seeking to exploit any perceived weakness in the domain's defense. Most intriguingly, you discover that the Takeda household already includes 2 other women with martial training, though both keep their abilities carefully concealed from casual observation. The master's sister practices archery in private sessions disguised as religious meditation, while one of the senior retainer's wives maintains impressive swordsmanship skills she developed during childhood in a warrior family. These hidden allies provide both reassurance and cautionary examples of how female martial abilities must be managed within traditional social structures. Your relationship with Nobuyuki develops through shared responsibilities that test compatibility in areas the formal courtship period could only approximate. Managing household security during his absences on domain business requires coordination between your unconventional capabilities and his conventional expectations about wife roles. When travelling merchants arrive with suspicious credentials, your ability to assess potential threats while maintaining appropriate feminine deportment proves valuable for gathering information without arousing suspicion. The most significant test arrives when minor bandits attempt to probe the compound's defences during a period when most of the male warriors are away on training exercises. Your response to this threat must balance multiple considerations: protecting the household effectively while avoiding actions that might be interpreted as exceeding proper authority, demonstrating competence without appearing to challenge male leadership roles, and maintaining the political fiction that wives participate in defense only as last resort rather than capable first-line fighters. Your solution involves coordinating the household's female members in activities that appear to be normal domestic routines, while actually implementing defensive preparations that make the compound appear too well protected to justify risky assault. Laundry hanging in specific patterns signals the presence of armed guards. Cooking fires positioned at strategic locations provide both cover and communication points. Children's games become reconnaissance activities that track potential infiltration routes. The bandits withdraw without attacking, possibly discouraged by signs of greater preparation than expected, possibly seeking easier targets elsewhere. But your handling of the situation earns approval from the household's senior members while demonstrating integration of martial skills with diplomatic sensitivity that reassures Nobuuki about your suitability for the complex role you must fill as both wife and strategic asset. The weeks that follow bring gradual acceptance as your competence in traditional feminine duties combined with subtle evidence of your martial capabilities establishes a reputation for reliability that transcends initial suspicions about your outsider status. You learn to navigate the compound's social geography, understanding which relationships require formal distance and which allow personal warmth, who can be trusted with sensitive information and who must be approached with careful reserve. But the most important development is your growing understanding of the broader political landscape that will shape your future. The Takeda domain faces pressures from multiple directions: neighbouring clans seeking territorial expansion, economic challenges that strain military resources, and internal tensions between traditionalists who resist change and pragmatists who advocate adaptation to evolving circumstances. Your marriage represents one element in a larger strategy for maintaining stability, but your success or failure could significantly influence the domain's ability to survive future crises. Listen to the evening prayers echoing from the family shrine, their familiar cadences offering comfort despite the unfamiliar voices that speak them, reminding you that some aspects of identity transcend geography and circumstance. 3 months into your residency, you discover that the Takeda compound operates according to political dynamics as complex and potentially deadly as any battlefield you might face in conventional warfare. The morning begins ordinarily enough: rice preparation, tea ceremony practice, correspondence review. But the undercurrents of tension between different factions within the household create an atmosphere of constant vigilance that makes even routine activities feel like strategic challenges. The immediate crisis develops when a letter arrives bearing disturbing news about shifting alliances among neighbouring domains. The Wasugi clan, traditional enemies of the Takeda, have been conducting diplomatic overtures to smaller lords whose loyalty has been considered reliable. Your husband's father receives this information with visible concern, understanding that military pressure may soon force difficult decisions about resource allocation and defensive priorities that could affect every aspect of household security. Your position in these discussions remains carefully balanced between inclusion and exclusion. As Nobuyuki's wife, you're privy to information that affects family survival, but as a woman from another clan, you must avoid any appearance of divided loyalty that might compromise your acceptance within the decision-making process. The challenge requires demonstrating value through insights and suggestions while remaining scrupulously careful to frame contributions as support for Takeda interests, rather than advocacy for alternative approaches that might be traced to your Minamoto background. The household's response to the developing crisis reveals fault lines you hadn't previously recognized. The older retainers favor traditional defensive strategies based on fortress positions and local militia support, while younger voices advocate for more aggressive responses that might disrupt enemy planning before threats fully materialize. Your training provides perspective on both approaches, but offering opinions requires navigating the complex protocols that govern when women may speak and how their words will be interpreted. Your most significant contribution comes during a strategy session, when discussion focuses on intelligence gathering about enemy movements and intentions. Your suggestion to utilize female servants and merchants for reconnaissance activities initially meets resistance from men who question whether women can provide reliable military information. But your patient explanation of how domestic networks could complement rather than replace conventional scouting wins gradual acceptance, particularly when you volunteer to coordinate such efforts personally. The plan you develop leverages connections between households in different domains to create information flow that appears to be casual social interaction while actually tracking military preparations and political developments. Tea ceremonies become briefing sessions. Market trips provide opportunities for casual conversations that reveal significant details about troop movements and supply allocations. Marriage negotiations between families create excuses for travel that allows observation of defensive preparations. Implementation requires skills that extend far beyond martial training, into areas of psychology, acting and social manipulation that feel uncomfortably close to espionage activities your samurai education taught you to despise. But circumstances have evolved beyond the clear moral boundaries that defined your childhood understanding of honour and duty. Survival now demands adaptation to ambiguous situations where conventional ethics provide insufficient guidance for complex decisions. The network you establish proves remarkably effective at gathering intelligence that supplements information obtained through traditional military channels. Within weeks, you're providing detailed reports about enemy capabilities and intentions that allow the Takeda leadership to make informed decisions about defensive preparations and alliance negotiations. Your contributions earn grudging respect from senior retainers who initially questioned your value beyond conventional wife duties, but success creates new challenges that test your ability to maintain balance between competing loyalties and expectations. Your intelligence gathering reveals information about your birth family's activities that could be used against Minamoto interests if shared with your new household. The knowledge places you in an impossible position. Withholding potentially valuable intelligence violates your duty to the Takeda, but sharing it betrays obligations to people who raised and trained you. Your solution involves carefully editing information to provide strategic value to your current family, while avoiding specific details that could be used to harm your birth family. The approach requires constant vigilance and sophisticated understanding of how intelligence might be interpreted and applied, skills you develop through trial and error, while hoping that mistakes won't prove catastrophic for people you care about on both sides of increasingly complex political divisions. The broader implications of your intelligence work become clear when your reports contribute to Takeda decisions that successfully counter enemy initiatives while maintaining peaceful relationships with neutral parties. Your ability to provide advance warning about potential threats enhances the domain's security, while establishing your reputation as valuable strategic asset, rather than mere political ornament acquired through marriage negotiations. But the most important lesson involves understanding how warfare in your era extends far beyond battlefield confrontations into realms of information, psychology, and social manipulation, where women's conventional invisibility becomes tactical advantage. The skills you're developing complement your martial training, while opening possibilities for influence and contribution that transcend traditional gender limitations. The respect you earn through intelligence work creates opportunities for greater involvement in household defense planning and strategic decision-making. Senior family members begin consulting you about matters that extend beyond immediate security concerns into longer-term planning for political survival and economic stability. Your perspective as both outsider and insider provides insights that pure Takeda loyalists might miss, while your commitment to household survival has been proven through months of effective service. Listen to the rain drumming against the roof tiles, each drop like a whispered secret that joins the larger conversation between earth and sky, reminding you that information flows in patterns too subtle for casual observation, but vital for those who learn to interpret their meaning. The crisis that tests your true commitment to your new family arrives 6 months after your wedding, when enemy forces launch a coordinated attack designed to exploit what they perceive as weakness in the Takeda domain's defenses. The assault begins before dawn with the kind of professional precision that indicates careful planning and detailed intelligence about your household's routines and vulnerabilities. You wake not to gentle sounds of morning preparation, but to the harsh clash of steel against steel in the outer courtyards. The attack has penetrated deeper into the compound than should have been possible, suggesting either betrayal by someone with intimate knowledge of defensive arrangements or sophisticated reconnaissance that mapped every weakness in your security perimeter. Either possibility implies threats that extend beyond immediate physical danger into questions about loyalty and trust that could destroy your adopted family's cohesion. Your response to the attack must balance multiple imperatives that demonstrate how completely your identity has evolved since leaving your birth family. As a wife, you have obligations to coordinate household defense while ensuring the safety of non-combatants. As a warrior, you possess capabilities that could significantly affect the battle's outcome. As a potential target whose capture could provide enemies with valuable leverage, you must avoid unnecessary risks while remaining available to fight if circumstances require your involvement. The naginata feels perfectly balanced in your hands as you assess tactical options from your position in the inner compound. The enemy force appears larger and better organised than previous attempts to probe Takeda defences, but their approach patterns suggest they haven't anticipated resistance from trained female fighters. This creates opportunities for surprise attacks that could disrupt their advance, while your husband and his retainers organise conventional defensive responses. Your first engagement occurs when enemy soldiers attempt to breach the women's quarters, where you're supposedly sheltering with other non-combatants. Their assumption that this area contains only helpless civilians proves catastrophically incorrect when you emerge from concealment with weapons ready and skills honed by years of training specifically for close-quarters combat situations. The fighting is brutal and personal in ways that differ significantly from your previous combat experience. These enemies aren't random bandits seeking easy target. They are professional soldiers executing specific missions that include capturing high-value prisoners for interrogation and leverage. Their determination to complete objectives means they won't retreat when faced with unexpected resistance, forcing you to fight with lethal intensity until the immediate threat is eliminated. Your technique adapts automatically to confined spaces and multiple opponents. The naginata's reach advantage providing decisive superiority in corridors and doorways where enemies can't utilize their numerical advantage effectively. But the physical demands of sustained combat while wearing formal kimono reveal limitations in your preparation that could prove dangerous during extended engagements. Between combat sequences, you coordinate evacuation procedures for household members who lack martial training, while maintaining communication with your husband's forces about enemy movements and tactical developments. The intelligence network you established proves invaluable for tracking threats and coordinating responses, demonstrating how your civilian contributions enhance, rather than compete with conventional military capabilities. The most challenging moment arrives when you encounter enemy soldiers who recognize your identity and attempt to capture rather than kill you. Their orders clearly specify your value as prisoner, confirming your worst fears about being targeted specifically because of your marriage alliance's political significance. The knowledge that your capture could compromise your new family's position transforms personal survival into a strategic imperative that justifies any level of violence necessary to avoid imprisonment. Your escape from the capture attempt requires utilizing every aspect of your training. Combat skills to fight through enemy positions, tactical knowledge to navigate the compound's defensive geography, and psychological resilience to function effectively while under extreme stress. The experience proves that your integration into the Takeda household hasn't weakened your capabilities but has actually enhanced them by providing new context for applying existing skills. The battle concludes with enemy withdrawal after their failure to achieve primary objectives, but the aftermath reveals damage that extends beyond physical destruction to trust relationships that form the foundation of household security. Investigation of how enemies obtained detailed intelligence about compound layout and defensive procedures uncovers evidence of betrayal by someone with insider access to sensitive information. Your role in identifying the traitor requires applying intelligence analysis skills you developed while establishing reconnaissance networks. Pattern analysis of information flows and access records reveals the source of leaked intelligence, but confronting the betrayal tests your commitment to your adopted family in ways that pure loyalty oaths could never address. The punishment of the traitor follows traditional forms that emphasize the severity of betraying trust relationships that enable collective survival. Your participation in the proceedings, though limited by protocol restrictions on women's involvement in formal justice proceedings, demonstrates your complete integration into household power structures and your acceptance of responsibilities that extend beyond personal interests to community welfare. The weeks following the attack bring recognition of your contributions to household defense that establishes your reputation as more than ceremonial wife or political ornament. Your combat effectiveness, intelligence capabilities, and loyalty under pressure earn respect from family members who initially viewed your marriage as diplomatic necessity rather than genuine asset acquisition. But the most significant transformation involves your own understanding of how identity evolves through shared struggles and proven commitment. The Takeda compound is no longer foreign territory where you serve as outsider seeking acceptance. It has become home in the deepest sense, a place you would defend with your life, because its survival has become inseparable from your own values and relationships. Listen to the sound of repairs being made to damaged walls, the rhythmic hammering of workers rebuilding defences that protected people you now love, each strike of hammer against nail like a heartbeat that confirms life continuing, despite attempts to destroy it. 1 year after your marriage, you discover that the relationship between husband and wife in a warrior household develops according to rhythms that bear little resemblance to the romantic poetry that dominated your girlhood understanding of love. The affection between you and Nobuyuki has grown through shared responsibilities, mutual respect earned under pressure, and the peculiar intimacy that develops between people who trust each other with their lives on a regular basis. Your morning routines have evolved into synchronized efficiency that reflects both practical necessity and emotional comfort with each other's presence. He practices sword forms while you work through naginata techniques, the parallel training sessions creating opportunities for subtle competition and mutual instruction that wouldn't be possible if either partner viewed martial skills as exclusively masculine territory. The respect he shows for your capabilities extends beyond diplomatic courtesy into genuine appreciation for abilities that enhance household security and strategic planning. But the most significant development in your relationship involves learning to navigate the emotional complexities that arise when personal affection must coexist with political obligations that could conflict with private preferences. Your love for Nobuyuki is real and growing, but it exists within frameworks of clan loyalty and strategic necessity that could require sacrifices neither of you wants to contemplate. The possibility that changing political circumstances might force choices between personal happiness and family survival creates underlying tension that shapes even intimate moments. Your joint planning for household defense reveals compatibility in areas that formal courtship procedures could never assess. When analysing intelligence reports about potential threats, your different perspectives combine to produce strategic insights that neither could achieve independently. His knowledge of conventional military doctrine complements your understanding of unconventional tactics and intelligence gathering, creating analytical capabilities that exceed the sum of individual contributions. The pregnancy that develops during your second year of marriage brings joy tempered by awareness of how dramatically motherhood will complicate your identity as female warrior. The physical changes associated with carrying a child affect your training routines and combat readiness in ways that require careful management to maintain defensive capabilities while ensuring the safety of the next generation. Your child's survival will depend partly on your ability to protect both yourself and the infant during crisis situations that might not allow for conventional non-combatant evacuation procedures. Nobuyuki's response to your pregnancy reveals character traits that formal courtship could never expose. His protective instincts balance respect for your continued autonomy with realistic assessment of how vulnerability changes during pregnancy affect household security planning. His willingness to modify military arrangements to accommodate your changing capabilities while maintaining overall defensive effectiveness demonstrates the kind of partnership that makes arranged marriages successful despite their unromantic origins. But preparation for motherhood also forces confrontation with aspects of female warrior identity that you haven't previously considered. How do you maintain martial skills while nursing an infant? What modifications to training routines allow continued development without compromising childcare responsibilities? How do you balance the vulnerability that comes with deep emotional attachment to a child against the emotional distance that effective combat sometimes requires? Your pregnancy also affects relationships with other women in the household who view your condition as evidence of successful integration into conventional wife roles. The approval you receive for fulfilling reproductive expectations creates opportunities for deeper friendships while potentially undermining the respect you've earned through martial capabilities. Managing these competing aspects of identity requires diplomatic skills that complement your physical training, while ensuring that motherhood enhances rather than restricts your strategic value to the family. The broader political implications of your pregnancy extend beyond personal and household concerns into clan survival strategies that depend on producing the next generation of warriors and leaders. Your child will inherit claims and obligations from both parents' families, creating opportunities for strengthening alliances while also inheriting the vulnerabilities that come with multiple loyalties and conflicting expectations. The birth of your daughter brings overwhelming joy mixed with fierce protectiveness that transforms your understanding of what you're fighting to preserve. The tiny life dependent on your care represents continuity that extends beyond your individual survival into future generations who will face challenges you can only imagine. Your warrior training takes on new meaning as preparation not just for your own survival, but for protecting the defenseless life that now depends completely on your strength and skill. But your daughter's birth also raises questions about the kind of world you want to create for the next generation. Will she grow up in a society where female martial capabilities are valued and developed? Or will changing circumstances force her into more restrictive roles that limit her potential? Your own choices and achievements will significantly influence the options available to her, making your continued development as both warrior and mother a legacy that extends far beyond immediate family concerns. The months following childbirth require developing new routines that integrate childcare with the continued training and household responsibilities. Your martial practice becomes more focused and efficient, compressed into shorter sessions that maximize skill maintenance while allowing time for nursing and infant care. The physical demands of early motherhood actually enhance certain aspects of your conditioning, while requiring adaptations that keep combat readiness realistic given your changed circumstances. Most importantly, your daughter's presence provides new motivation for excellence that transcends personal ambition or family obligation. You're no longer training just to survive or serve, you're preparing to create a world where she can thrive and develop her own potential according to her individual capabilities rather than restrictive social expectations. Every technique mastered, every tactical insight gained, every relationship strengthened contributes to building security that will protect her future choices. Listen to your daughter's peaceful breathing as she sleeps beside your weapons, her innocent trust, a reminder that your skills exist not to take life but to preserve it, that strength serves love rather than competing with it. 3 years after your daughter's birth, you face the complex challenge of beginning her education in a world where her future options will be shaped by skills she develops now, and the identity she learns to inhabit as both female and potential warrior. The morning finds you in the practice yard with your 4-year-old daughter watching intently as you demonstrate basic naginata forms, her dark eyes tracking every movement with the intense concentration that suggests natural aptitude for martial learning. Her early training must balance multiple competing considerations that previous generations of female warriors didn't face. The political climate has shifted toward greater restriction on women's martial activities, making it necessary to disguise combat instruction as dance or ceremonial practice to avoid unwanted attention from authorities who view armed women as potential threats to social stability. Your daughter's education requires creativity and subtlety that transforms deadly techniques into graceful movements that appear harmless to casual observers. The wooden practice naginata you've crafted for her tiny hands feels impossibly light compared to real weapons, but the principles she learns through repetitive forms will establish foundations for advanced training. When her strength and coordination mature, her natural balance and fluid movement suggest inherited talent that could be developed into exceptional capability if properly nurtured, but her training must proceed carefully to avoid creating overconfidence that could prove dangerous during actual emergencies. Your teaching methods integrate martial instruction with lessons about strategy, psychology, and the diplomatic skills that female warriors require for survival in societies that view their capabilities with suspicion. Each practice session includes discussions about when to reveal strength and when to conceal it, how to assess potential threats while maintaining appropriate feminine deportment, and the crucial importance of building alliances with other women who can provide support during crisis situations. But your daughter's education extends far beyond physical techniques into areas of intellectual development that will determine her effectiveness as both strategist and survivor. Her literacy training includes texts about history, poetry, and philosophy that provide context for understanding the larger forces that shape individual destinies. Her mathematical studies focus on practical applications, calculating distances for archery, understanding geometric principles that govern fortification design, managing resources during siege conditions. The most challenging aspect of her education involves preparing her for the emotional realities of warrior life without destroying the innocence that makes childhood precious. How do you teach a young girl about the possibility of killing or being killed while preserving her natural compassion and joy in living? How do you develop psychological resilience that will enable survival under extreme stress without creating callousness that diminishes her humanity? Your approach emphasizes protection rather than aggression, framing martial skills as tools for defending family and community rather than weapons for conquest or dominance. Every technique comes with stories about female warriors who used their abilities to save lives rather than take them. Heroines who chose courage over safety, but maintained their essential feminine virtues despite exposure to violence and hardship. Her relationship with her father provides another crucial element in her development as future warrior and woman. Nobuyuki's treatment of his daughter establishes patterns she'll expect from men throughout her life, teaching her to demand respect while offering it in return. His willingness to support her martial training despite social pressures demonstrates that strength and femininity can coexist in ways that enhance, rather than conflict with each other. The household's other children provide opportunities for your daughter to practice leadership skills while learning to work within group dynamics that mirror the alliances and tensions she'll face in adult life. Her ability to inspire loyalty, resolve conflicts, and coordinate group activities during play reveals natural talents that could translate into strategic capabilities if properly developed through progressively challenging scenarios. Your daughter's training also includes exposure to the broader world beyond the family compound through carefully supervised expeditions that teach observation skills and cultural awareness. Market visits become lessons in reading crowd dynamics and identifying potential threats. Temple ceremonies provide opportunities to practice formal deportment while observing political interactions between different clan representatives. But the most important element in her education involves developing the judgment that determines when martial skills should be applied and when alternative approaches might prove more effective. Physical capabilities without wisdom create danger rather than security. Strength without discrimination becomes liability rather than asset. Your daughter must learn not just how to fight, but when fighting serves larger purposes and when restraint demonstrates superior strength. Her progress during these early years reveals both promise and challenges that will require continued attention as she matures. Her natural athleticism and quick learning suggest potential for exceptional martial achievement, but her gentle temperament raises questions about whether she possesses the psychological toughness that warrior life sometimes demands. Your guidance must enhance her strengths while addressing areas of development that could become vulnerabilities during future crisis situations. The political implications of raising a daughter with martial capabilities extend beyond family concerns into broader questions about social change and women's roles in evolving feudal society. Your choices about her education will influence not just her individual future, but the possibilities available to the next generation of girls who might follow her example. The responsibility feels overwhelming, but also inspiring in its potential to create positive change through individual excellence, rather than direct confrontation with restrictive traditions. Listen to your daughter's laughter as she masters a particularly challenging movement sequence, her joy in accomplishment, a reminder that learning itself can be pleasure rather than burden, that strength develops naturally when properly nurtured rather than forced. 5 years of marriage have taught you that a warrior's life, like the changing seasons, follows cycles of preparation, action, reflection, and renewals that shape both individual development and family prosperity. The autumn of your 6th year finds you standing in the compound's garden, watching maple leaves fall while your young daughter practices calligraphy nearby, her small brush creating characters that speak of beauty and impermanence with equal grace. Your own evolution from uncertain bride to established family member reflects mastery of lessons that no training could have prepared you for, the patience required to build trust gradually, the wisdom to know when martial skills serve better by remaining hidden, and the subtle art of wielding influence through apparent submission to conventional expectations. These insights have made you more effective as both warrior and woman than pure combat training ever could have achieved. The reputation you've earned within the broader political community extends beyond your immediate household into networks of alliance and obligation that make your marriage a successful strategic partnership rather than mere diplomatic formality. Other clans now seek your husband's counsel partly because your intelligence gathering and analysis enhance his decision-making capabilities. Your contributions remain largely invisible to outsiders, but their effects ripple through political calculations that shape regional stability. Your relationship with your birth family has evolved into something more complex than either loyalty or estrangement, a form of honoured distance that acknowledges changed circumstances while maintaining emotional connections that transcend political boundaries. Letters arrive infrequently but carry news that keeps you informed about developments in your childhood home while respecting your obligations to your current family. The balance requires constant adjustment but has proven sustainable despite initial fears about divided loyalties. The martial skills that originally defined your identity have matured into something deeper and more flexible than pure technical proficiency. Years of applying combat principles to non-combat situations have taught you that warrior wisdom extends far beyond battlefield tactics into every aspect of strategic thinking and problem-solving. The naginata forms you practice each morning now serve as moving meditation that maintains physical readiness while developing mental clarity and emotional balance. Your daughter's progress provides daily reminder of how knowledge transfers between generations and adapts to changing circumstances. Her training incorporates innovations you've developed through years of experience while maintaining connection to traditional techniques that link her to centuries of female warriors who face similar challenges with similar determination. Watching her development feels like participating in an ongoing conversation between past and future that transcends individual lifespans. The political landscape continues shifting in ways that create both opportunities and challenges for women with martial capabilities. Some domains have begun formally recognizing female contributions to defense and strategic planning, while others impose increasingly strict limitations on women's activities outside the conventional domestic roles. Your own situation provides a model for how capability can be preserved and developed, even within restrictive frameworks, but success requires constant vigilance and adaptation to changing circumstances. Your pregnancy with a second child brings joy tempered by awareness of how each addition to the family increases both vulnerability and motivation for excellence. The child growing within you represents another hostage to fortune, another precious life whose safety depends on your ability to navigate political complexities while maintaining the strength necessary for protection during crisis situations. But each child also represents hope for a future where their choices won't be as constrained by gender expectations as your own have been. The philosophical understanding you've developed through years of balancing competing identities and loyalties has transformed your approach to conflict from reactive response to proactive strategy. You now see problems as opportunities for creative solutions rather than obstacles to be overcome through force. This shift in perspective has made you more effective in all aspects of life while reducing the emotional stress that once accompanied every challenge to your unconventional role. Your contributions to household prosperity extend beyond security concerns into economic activities that utilize skills developed through martial training. Your understanding of logistics, resource management, and strategic planning proves valuable for commercial ventures and agricultural development that enhance family wealth while strengthening political position. The discipline and attention to detail that characterize effective warriors translate directly into successful management of complex projects requiring coordination between multiple participants. The respect you command within the household has evolved from grudging acceptance of your unusual capabilities to genuine appreciation for the wisdom and strength you bring to family deliberations. Your voice carries weight in discussions about important decisions, not because protocol requires consultation, but because experience has proven that your insights contribute to better outcomes. This transformation represents success that transcends personal achievement to become family asset that benefits everyone under your protection. But perhaps the most significant development involves your growing understanding of how the individual excellence serves larger purposes beyond personal fulfillment or family advancement. Your example influences other women who seek to develop their own capabilities while remaining within social frameworks that might otherwise restrict their potential. The path you've created through determination and skill provides guidance for others who face similar choices between conventional safety and unconventional possibility. The seasons continue their eternal cycle, each bringing changes that require adaptation while maintaining core principles that define identity and purpose. Your life as female warrior has taught you to embrace change as opportunity rather than fear it as threat, to find strength in flexibility rather than rigidity, and to understand that true power lies in the ability to preserve what matters most while adapting everything else to serve that preservation. Listen to the wind moving through bare branches that will soon bear new leaves, its voice carrying promises of renewal that come to those who endure winter's testing with patience and faith in spring's inevitable return. 10 years have passed since your marriage transformed you from Minamoto daughter to Takeda wife, and now you face the autumn of your warrior pride with the knowledge that comes from surviving challenges that would have destroyed a lesser spirit. The morning finds you in the practice yard with your 2 children, your daughter, now 9 and already showing a remarkable promise with the naginata, and your son, 6 years old and eager to prove himself worthy of the warrior traditions he will inherit from both parents. The political landscape has shifted dramatically during your decade of service to the Takeda clan. With alliances reformed and ancient enmities taking new shapes, that require constant adaptation of strategies you thought were permanently established. The Wasugi threat that once dominated military planning has given way to more complex challenges involving multiple clans whose shifting loyalties create a chess game where yesterday's ally becomes tomorrow's enemy without warning or apparent justification. Your role within this evolving political environment has matured beyond the intelligence gathering and household defense that originally established your value to your adopted family. You now serve as informal advisor to your husband on matters that extend far beyond military tactics into areas of diplomacy, economics, and the subtle psychological warfare that determines outcomes before armies ever meet on battlefields. Your insights have contributed to decisions that preserved the domain's independence while neighbouring territories fell under the control of more powerful rivals. But the most significant development involves your growing reputation within the broader community of female warriors who operate throughout Japan. Letters arrive regularly from women in other domains who seek advice about training techniques, political strategies, and the delicate balance required to maintain martial capabilities while fulfilling conventional social expectations. Your responses have created an informal network of correspondents who share information and provide mutual support across clan boundaries that officially separate them. This underground community of warrior women represents something new in Japanese society, a group bound by shared identity and mutual respect rather than family loyalty or territorial obligation. The relationships you've developed through correspondence and occasional meetings provide emotional support that transcends the isolation that often accompanies unconventional choices. More importantly, these connections create possibilities for coordinated action during crises that threaten not just individual clans, but the broader social order that allows female warriors to exist at all. Your children's education reflects lessons learned through your own struggles to maintain identity while adapting to changing circumstances. Your daughter's training incorporates innovations you've developed through years of experimentation with techniques that maximize effectiveness, while minimizing the social disruption that might provoke restrictions on female martials' activities. Her progress suggests that the next generation of warrior women will surpass their mother's achievements if provided with proper foundation and encouragement. Your son's instruction presents different challenges, as you must teach him to respect and value female capabilities without developing attitudes that might make him ineffective in a world where most men view women's martial skills with suspicion or hostility. His education emphasizes partnership and cooperation rather than dominance and control, preparing him for leadership roles where success depends on utilizing all available resources, regardless of their source. The aging of your parents-in-law has gradually increased your responsibilities within the household hierarchy, as younger family members look to you for guidance about matters that once would have been decided by senior generation members whose experience commanded automatic respect. Your judgment is now sought on questions ranging from marriage arrangements for younger relatives to strategic decisions about resource allocation during economically challenging periods. But the most sobering development involves your growing awareness of mortality's approach as bodies that once seemed invincible begin showing signs of wear from years of training and occasional combat. Your reflexes remain sharp and your technique continues improving, but recovery from intensive practice sessions takes longer, and minor injuries require more careful attention to prevent complications that could affect long-term effectiveness. This awareness of physical limitations has focused your attention on legacy preservation, ensuring that knowledge and wisdom accumulated through decades of experience will survive your individual lifespan to benefit future generations of warrior women. You've begun documenting techniques, strategies, and philosophical insights in scrolls that your daughter and other students can study and build upon. The writing process forces you to articulate principles that were previously understood intuitively, creating resources that could prove invaluable for women who lack access to experienced teachers. The political situation continues evolving in directions that create both opportunities and threats for women with martial capabilities. Some forward-thinking clan leaders have begun formally recognizing female contributions to defense and strategic planning, while conservative factions advocate for stricter enforcement of traditional gender roles that would eliminate women's participation in military activities. Your own success provides ammunition for both sides of this debate, demonstrating either the value of female capabilities or the dangers of departing from established social norms. Your response to these pressures involves maintaining excellence while avoiding provocative behavior that might provide enemies with justification for restricting women's opportunities. every public appearance, every demonstration of skill. Every contribution to family prosperity must serve the larger goal of preserving and expanding possibilities for the next generation, while not creating backlash that could destroy progress already achieved. The autumn wind carries scents of burning leaves and the promise of winter's approach, reminders that seasons of growth give way to periods of dormancy, that test survival skills in different ways. Your warrior prime may be passing, but the wisdom gained through experience creates different forms of strength that could prove more valuable than youthful physical prowess for the challenges that lie ahead. Listen to your children's voices as they practice together, their laughter mixing with the serious concentration of students who understand that play and preparation are different aspects of the same essential learning, that joy and discipline can coexist in ways that strengthen both. 15 years after your marriage, you stand at the threshold between active warrior and elder teacher, your daughter now approaching the age when her own marriage arrangements will be considered, your son beginning the advanced training that will prepare him for adult responsibilities as clan member and potential leader. The morning light filtering through the practice yard's wooden screen seems different somehow, softer perhaps, or maybe your eyes have learned to see beauty in ordinary moments that once passed unnoticed during the urgency of youth. Your daughter's upcoming marriage negotiations force you to confront questions about the world you've helped create for the next generation of warrior women. The potential suitors include young men from progressive families who value female martial capabilities as assets to be developed, but also representatives from conservative clans who view such skills as dangerous departures from proper feminine behaviour. Your choice of husband for your daughter will significantly influence her future opportunities to utilise abilities you've spent years helping her develop. The complexity of these decisions reflects broader changes in Japanese society, as the feudal system begins showing signs of strain that could lead to fundamental transformations in social organisation. The arrival of foreign influences and technologies creates pressures for adaptation that affect everything from military tactics to economic systems to the roles available for women within evolving power structures. Your daughter will live through changes that you can barely imagine, making her education and adaptability as important as any specific skill or technique. Your own role within the Takeda household has evolved to something resembling the senior advisors who guided your childhood development, though your influence operates through different channels than those available to official counselors. Your husband increasingly seeks your perspective on strategic decisions that extend beyond immediate clan interests into regional and national developments that could affect family survival for generations. The intelligence network you established years ago continues providing valuable information that influences policy decisions throughout the domain. But the most significant aspect of your current position involves serving as bridge between different generations of family members whose experiences and expectations reflect the rapidly changing world around them. Older relatives remember times when social roles were more clearly defined, and change occurred gradually enough to allow comfortable adaptation. Younger family members face futures where flexibility and innovation may matter more than adherence to traditional approaches that served previous generations effectively. Your guidance helps family members navigate these transitions while preserving essential values that define clan identity and purpose. The warrior spirit that has sustained your family through centuries of challenges remains relevant, but its expression must adapt to circumstances that previous generations never imagined. Your task involves identifying which traditions deserve preservation and which obstacles require transformation through careful application of wisdom gained through experience. The correspondence network you've maintained with other warrior women throughout Japan has expanded into something approaching a formal organisation, with regular meetings, shared training exercises, and coordinated responses to political developments that affect women's status and opportunities. This community provides support and guidance that transcends individual clan loyalties while strengthening rather than weakening family bonds through enhanced capabilities and expanded perspectives. Your contributions to this network include not just practical advice about combat techniques and strategic planning, but philosophical insights about the nature of female strength and its proper application within social contexts that remain resistant to dramatic change. The scrolls you've written about warrior psychology and tactical innovation circulate among women who face similar challenges in different regions, creating shared knowledge base that benefits everyone. while reducing the isolation that once characterized individual struggles for acceptance and recognition. The physical changes that accompany advancing age have required modifications to your training routines and combat capabilities, but these adjustments have revealed new aspects of warrior development that pure youthful strength could never access. Your technique has become more efficient and economical, eliminating unnecessary movements while maximizing the effectiveness of each action. The mental discipline developed through decades of practice now provides advantages that compensate for any reduction in raw physical power. More importantly, your understanding of strategy and psychology has deepened to the point where you can often resolve conflicts through positioning and preparation that makes actual combat unnecessary. The ability to read situations accurately and respond with precisely calibrated force represents a form of mastery that transcends technical proficiency to become art form that integrates all aspects of warrior development into seamless expression of trained will. Your children's progress provides daily evidence of how knowledge transfers between generations while adapting to changing circumstances. Their capabilities already exceed your own at comparable ages, not because they possess superior natural ability, but because they benefit from improved teaching methods and accumulated wisdom that wasn't available to earlier generations. This progression suggests that the tradition of female warriors will continue evolving and strengthening despite political pressures that seek to restrict women's opportunities. The approach of your daughter's marriage forces consideration of how your own legacy will influence future generations beyond your immediate family. The example you've provided through years of successful service to clan interests while maintaining personal integrity has created precedent that other women can follow and build upon. Your achievements demonstrate that capability and femininity enhance rather than conflict with each other when properly balanced and skillfully applied. The autumn of your warrior career arrives not with decline, but with transformation into different forms of service that utilize accumulated wisdom rather than purely physical capabilities. Teaching, writing, advising, and organizing represent new expressions of the warrior spirit that complement rather than replace earlier forms of contribution. The circle completes not with ending, but with continuation through new channels that serve the same essential purposes through evolved methods. Listen to the sound of your daughter's practice sessions, her movements flowing with confidence born of years of patient instruction, her voice calling encouragement to younger students who will learn from her, as she learned from you, the endless chain of knowledge and wisdom that makes individual mortality irrelevant to the continuation of essential principles. 20 years have passed since you first knelt in the Takeda compound as a young bride, uncertain of your place in an unfamiliar world, and now you prepare to attend your daughter's wedding, watching her transform from student to teacher, from protected child to woman who will face her own challenges with strength and wisdom developed through years of patient preparation. The morning light seems to carry extra warmth today, as if the world itself celebrates the continuation of traditions that seemed so fragile during your own early struggles. Your daughter's marriage to a progressive young daimyo's son represents validation of everything you've worked to achieve, a union based on mutual respect and shared values rather than mere political convenience. Her future husband appreciates her martial capabilities as assets that enhance rather than threaten their partnership, understanding that strength in one partner strengthens the whole rather than diminishing others through comparison. The negotiations required careful diplomacy to ensure that her training and abilities would be valued in her new household, rather than suppressed as inappropriate feminine behavior. The ceremony itself reflects the changing times as traditional elements blend with innovations that acknowledge women's evolving roles in samurai society. Your daughter's wedding kimono incorporates subtle decorations that reference her martial achievements while maintaining appropriate bridal elegance. The gifts exchanged include weapons crafted specifically for her use, formally recognizing her identity as warrior woman rather than conventional wife whose primary value lies in domestic capabilities alone. Your own participation in the ceremony carries emotional weight that surprises you with its intensity. Watching your daughter bow to her new family while maintaining the dignity and confidence you've spent years helping her develop feels like witnessing the successful completion of your most important mission. She will face challenges you can't anticipate, but her foundation provides tools for adaptation and growth that should enable success, regardless of specific circumstances. she encounters. Your son's development during these years has proven equally satisfying as he matures into a young man, whose respect for female capabilities makes him a natural ally for women seeking to expand their opportunities within traditional frameworks. His education emphasized cooperation and partnership rather than dominance and control, preparing him for leadership roles where success depends on utilizing all available resources regardless of conventional assumptions about their proper sources. The network of warrior women you've helped establish throughout Japan has evolved into an informal but influential organization that affects political decisions and social developments throughout the country. The letters that once provided personal support and practical advice now coordinate activities that influence clan policies and regional alliances in subtle but significant ways. Female voices, while rarely heard directly in formal councils, shape outcomes through channels that bypass traditional power structures while achieving similar results. Your written works have found audiences beyond your original intended readership as copies circulate among scholars and officials who appreciate not just a physical martial skills but the deeper wisdom that comes from years of navigating complex social and political challenges. Your observations about strategy, human nature, and the art of maintaining strength while appearing conventional have found receptive audiences among scholars studying female leadership in historical contexts. Marriage negotiations for your daughter have concluded successfully, with agreements that acknowledge her right to continue her martial training while fulfilling the diplomatic obligations that marriage alliances require. Her future husband's family has specifically requested that she maintain her combat skills, viewing them as valuable assets for household defense and strategic planning, rather than embarrassing departures from feminine propriety. Your son's development has proven equally rewarding as he approaches the age when his own marriage and career decisions will determine his path through adulthood. His education in partnership rather than dominance has prepared him to value female capabilities while maintaining the masculine identity necessary for leadership roles in traditional society. The balance you've helped him achieve between strength and flexibility suggests that the next generation of male samurai may prove more supportive of female warriors than their predecessors. The broader political landscape continues evolving in ways that create both opportunities and challenges for women with martial capabilities. Recent changes in clan leadership have brought younger, more progressive voices into positions of authority, some of whom actively seek to incorporate female strategic insights into their decision-making processes. But conservative factions remain influential, advocating for stricter enforcement of traditional gender roles that would eliminate women's participation in military activities. Your response to these shifting circumstances involves maintaining excellence while building alliances that transcend individual clan loyalties. The network of warrior women you've helped establish throughout Japan has become a source of mutual support and shared intelligence that benefits all participants while strengthening rather than threatening their primary family obligations. This community provides resources and encouragement that enable individual success while advancing the collective cause of preserving and expanding opportunities for future generations. The physical challenges that accompany advancing age have required modifications to your training routines, but these adaptations have revealed new aspects of martial development that pure youthful strength could never access. Your technique has become more economical and precise, eliminating unnecessary movements while maximizing the effectiveness of each action. The mental discipline developed through decades of practice now provides advantages that compensate for any reduction in raw physical power. More importantly, your understanding of conflict resolution has evolved beyond reactive responses to proactive strategy that often prevents violence through superior positioning and preparation. You can now resolve many challenges through careful analysis and diplomatic maneuvering that makes actual combat unnecessary, while maintaining the credible threat of decisive action if peaceful solutions prove insufficient. Your written works documenting techniques, strategies, and philosophical insights have begun circulating among women throughout Japan who seek guidance for developing their own capabilities within restrictive social frameworks. These scrolls represent your attempt to preserve and transmit knowledge that might otherwise disappear with your individual lifespan, ensuring that future generations benefit from lessons learned through decades of experience. The autumn light filtering through the practice yard seems softer now, or perhaps your eyes have learned to appreciate beauty in moments that once passed unnoticed during the intensity of active training. Your daughter's wedding preparations remind you that time moves in cycles rather than straight lines, that endings become beginnings when viewed from the proper perspective. Listen to the sound of your daughter practicing calligraphy in the adjacent room, her brush moving across rice paper with the same precision and focus you've taught her to apply to martial techniques, proof that discipline transfers between all forms of human endeavour. The cherry blossoms fall again, their delicate petals carpeting the courtyard where you first learned to balance deadly precision with feminine grace 25 years ago. Your daughter's wedding celebration has concluded, and now you stand in the practice yard watching your granddaughter, barely 4 years old, attempt to mimic the naginata forms she observes during your morning training sessions. The circle completes itself through new generations, while continuing to expand outward in directions you never could have imagined. Your daughter's departure for her new home yesterday marked not an ending, but a transformation, from student to teacher, from protected child to protector of others, from recipient of wisdom to source of guidance for those who will follow. The confidence with which she approached her new responsibilities reflected everything you had hoped to instill during her years of preparation. Her husband's genuine respect for her capabilities and his family's active support for her continued development validated the choices you made about her education, despite social pressures to conform to more conventional expectations. The network of warrior women you've helped establish throughout Japan has evolved beyond informal correspondence into something approaching a formal organization with regular meetings, shared training exercises, and coordinated responses to political developments affecting women's status. Your role within this community has shifted from organizer to elder advisor, providing guidance based on decades of experience while supporting younger women who bring fresh perspectives and innovative approaches to traditional challenges. Your son, now preparing for his own marriage and adult responsibilities, has become an active advocate for female martial training within his generation of male samurai. His willingness to challenge conventional attitudes while maintaining respect for tradition demonstrates that change can occur through patient influence rather than direct confrontation. The partnerships he's developing with other progressive young men suggest that the next generation may prove more supportive of female warriors than your own ever was. But perhaps the most significant development involves the broader social changes occurring throughout Japan, as the feudal system shows signs of strain that could lead to fundamental transformations in political organization and social structures. Foreign influences, technological innovations, and economic pressures create demands for adaptation that affect everything from military tactics to family relationships to the roles available for women within evolving power structures. Your granddaughter represents the future that will emerge from these changes, a future you can influence through your choices today, but cannot fully control or predict. Her education must prepare her for possibilities that may not yet exist while maintaining connection to traditions that provide identity and purpose across generations. The balance between innovation and preservation that has characterized your own life becomes even more crucial when applied to preparing the next generation for an uncertain future. The physical limitations that accompany aging have transformed your relationship with martial training from active practice to contemplative study. But this evolution has revealed aspects of warrior wisdom that pure physical activity could never access. Your understanding of strategy, timing, and human psychology has deepened to the point where you can often achieve objectives through minimal action guided by maximum awareness. The true power of the warrior path lies not in the ability to inflict violence, but in the capacity to prevent it through superior preparation and understanding. Your written works have found audiences beyond the immediate community of female warriors, attracting attention from scholars, political advisors, and forward-thinking clan leaders who recognize that societal challenges require innovative solutions regardless of their source. The respect your insights command transcends gender considerations to focus on practical value and proven effectiveness. This recognition suggests that wisdom earned through experience may eventually overcome prejudices based on convention and assumption. The correspondence you maintain with other domains provides intelligence about political developments and social changes occurring throughout Japan. Your analysis of these trends, informed by decades of observing how individual decisions create collective outcomes, has proven valuable for strategic planning that extends far beyond immediate clan interests. Your ability to synthesize information from multiple sources while maintaining perspective on long-term implications has established your reputation as a reliable advisor whose counsel transcends partisan considerations. But the most rewarding aspect of your current position involves witnessing the success of women whose development you influence through teaching, example, or encouragement. Reports arrive regularly of former students who have distinguished themselves in various capacities, some as martial instructors, others as diplomatic advisors, as still others as successful managers of family enterprises that blend traditional activities with innovative approaches. Each success validates the investment you made in their development, while creating opportunities for the next generation to build upon established foundations. The cherry blossoms continue falling outside, each petal a reminder that individual lives pass while larger patterns persist across time. Your own warrior career may be entering its final phase, but the tradition you've helped preserve and develop will continue through new expressions that adapt ancient wisdom to contemporary challenges. The naginata forms you practice each morning connect you to centuries of women who face similar challenges with similar determination, while creating precedents for future generations to follow and improve upon. Your granddaughter approaches, wooden practice weapon in her tiny hands, eyes bright with curiosity about the movements she observes but cannot yet understand. You kneel beside her, adjusting her grip with the same patience your sensei showed decades ago when you were struggling to master basics that now feel as natural as breathing. The transfer of knowledge begins again, continuing the endless chain of teaching and learning that makes individual mortality irrelevant to the preservation of essential principles. The afternoon light slants through the practice yard at the perfect angle to illuminate the falling blossoms, creating a scene of such beauty that even years of warrior training cannot prepare you for its emotional impact. This moment always teaching, learning, continuing her, represents everything you have fought to preserve and protect. The weapons, the techniques, the strategies all exist to serve this deeper purpose, ensuring that wisdom and strength pass safely from one generation to the next. Listen to your granddaughter's delighted laughter as she successfully completes her first proper stance, her joy and accomplishment echoing across the decades to remind you why the warrior path exists, not to create killers, but to develop protectors, not to worship violence, but to preserve peace, not to dominate others, but to serve something greater than individual ambition. The cherry blossoms fall like snow, like tears, like blessings, carrying the hopes and dreams of countless generations into the future where new warriors will face new challenges with ancient wisdom and eternal courage. Your story ends, but the tradition continues, spring returning after winter, life emerging from apparent death, hope persisting despite all obstacles. The way of the Onna-Bugeisha endures, passed from mother to daughter, teacher to student, generation to generation, as eternal as the changing seasons and as enduring as the steel that serves not conquest but preservation of all that makes life worth defending. The eternal spring of warriors blooms in every generation that chooses courage over comfort, service over selfishness, and the long path of discipline over the easy road of surrender. Your life as a female samurai in feudal Japan may be one story among many, but it represents the undying spirit that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary guardians of everything worth preserving. May your descendants find strength in your example, wisdom in your choices, and courage in your legacy. The way of the warrior continues, world without end.